Veritas Aquitus by Bones Boy 15, Chapter 4, Day 1. Most pretty, so beautiful. Yes, lovelies, I love you all, even you. Naruto had a silly grin on his face as he slept in his assigned bed. The grin widened as he snuggled into his bed and drool started to pool around his cheek. I love you all, my wonderful, luscious, well-rounded, and smoking hot. Your giant, big, squeezable noodles. I love you, ramen. Haku stared at his slumbering partner with mild surprise while he waited for the bathroom to become open. He had awoken earlier at 6, but was surprised to find that Kurama had beaten him to the bathroom. Sasuke was just now starting to stir while Naruto, well, ramen noodles, so yummy, I want, in my tummy. He was still in dreamland. Didn't peg him to be such a talkative sleeper, did you? Kurama's voice startled the other boy slightly. Haku arched a brow as he took in the modified uniform that Kurama wore. He ditched the jacket entirely and replaced the blue vest with a red one, along with the tie that had a curled fox pin in the middle of it, rather than the plain red tie they had been issued. His sunglasses were back in place, and Haku was slightly curious as to what the fawn in his eyes looked like. Realizing he'd yet to answer Kurama's question, Haku gave him a sheepish smile. I hardly know anything about any of you. We all sort of rushed to our rooms and went to bed. You three fell asleep before I had even finished my evening wash. Kurama nodded and brought his tail around in order for him to brush it. Sorry about that, but I had drained two other students in the forest and empowered Naruto twice as long with Sasuke one time. It was taxing for me. Sasuke likewise was exhausted from using his semblance along with my aura. Naruto, he's just a lazy bastard. Haku chuckled sheepishly and gathered his clothes. So I see. If you'll excuse me, I think I'll shower and dress before the other two wake up. Sure thing. Don't worry about any fuzzy surprises. I don't shed when I bathe. Kurama chuckled as at his own weak joke, while Haku let out a soft laugh of his own. Kurama waited until the bathroom door had shut and the shower had started before he looked over to his partner. Haku's in the shower now. You can stop covering yourself. Screw you, Otsutsuki. Sasuke grumbled as he sat up and covered his morning problem with his blanket. How the hell are you and Naruto not having this problem with her so close by? Kurama's grin widened while he carefully brushed his tail. I can't say anything for the ramen addict, but as for me, I'm not that interested in you hairless apes. I plan to myself a nice fondness girl later in life and have a litter or two like my father did. Sasuke snorted and waited for a few minutes before his morning problem went away. He looked around the rather bland room and then looked over at the generic clock on the wall. Only 6:45. We've got less than 2 hours before class starts. Well, would you like to wake Sleeping Beauty or... Gah! Kurama suddenly went rigid and clapped his hands over his ears as he fell off of his bed to the floor. Son of a bitch! Who blew that whistle? Who? What? Where's the ramen thief? Naruto asked after he shot up from his bed ready to fight. He looked around the room and then frowned. Hey, this isn't Ichiraku's all-you-can-eat ramen buffet. That was just a dream, idiot, Sasuke grumbled as he wiggled the finger in his ear. He got up and went over to the window, which he promptly slammed shut. Soundproofed up until you leave the window open. When I find whoever blew that goddamn whistle, I'm going to kill them. Kurama said with a low growl as he got back to his feet and adjusted his glasses. He fixed his uniform and looked at his tail and the comb on the floor. Ah, damn it, I lost count. Oh man, that was just another dream. Naruto sulked. He raised the fist to the ceiling and shook it menacingly. Curse you, reality. You show me happiness and then snatch it away before I can partake in it. Partake in what? The three looked at Haku as he stepped out of the shower in the men's uniform. Sasuke looked very surprised at this, while Naruto and Kurama merely glanced at him. Naruto gave the uniform a once-over and shook his head while his arms crossed over his shoulder firmly. I'm not wearing that. Too stuffy. Kurama sighed. Naruto, you can modify your uniform slightly, but you must wear it to class. Make me. Kurama looked at Sasuke, who just stood up and promptly went to the bathroom with his clothes in his arm. It was his way of saying, "This is your problem, and I'll let you deal with it." Frankly, Kurama felt as though his partner had ditched him. With an aggravated sigh, Kurama looked at his longtime friend, Naruto. Naruto's eyes darted to the fondness. Kurama, that thing tells me that the wearer is high class, obnoxious, snotty, no fun, and bland. I am none of those things. Kurama sighed. Well, you're wrong on two accounts. What's that supposed to mean? Naruto asked with a scowl. Naruto, Haku said as he put a hand on his partner's shoulder before Kurama could answer him. As our team leader, you are expected to set an example. By not conforming to the rules, you make yourself look ill-suited to be team leader and make us look unequipped or unprepared for the challenge that we face ahead. Naruto frowned and crossed his arm childishly. Yeah, but there's no orange. And thus we come to the real problem with the uniform, Kurama said with a roll of his eyes. He gestured to himself. Naruto, look at me. I all but ditched the jacket and swapped out the vest and tie. This is still accessible and you can wear your uniform however you wish. I got to wear the shoes, shirt, and pants, though. And the tie, Kurama added. Naruto grimaced. I hate dressing nice. I totally agree. Kurama nodded. They looked up as Sasuke walked out with the jacket and vest over his shoulder. They can't seriously expect us to wear these without modifying them, can they? Sasuke asked. Haku looked down at himself and arched a brow. I don't see anything wrong with it. That's because it suits you, Sasuke said with a smile. Naruto blinked in confusion while Kurama smirked and snickered before the leader of Team Nox could ask what was so funny. Sasuke looked at him. Return to shower, idiot. Don't use all the water in the ocean. You guys are all so mean. Naruto huffed as he disappeared into the bathroom with the uniform and a few other clothes in his arms. Haku looked at the two and folded his arms over his chest. He does have a point. That's rather cool to call your friend an idiot multiple times. True, but we're just ribbing him. Sasuke shrugged. He's not dumb, but he's not the brightest bulb in the house either. He knows when we're kidding around. However, we probably should warn you about his classroom habits. Habits? Haku asked as he ignored the loud bang that came from a nearby room. Sasuke and Kurama exchanged a look before Kurama turned to Haku. Naruto does not do well in classrooms. Does he have a learning disorder? Haku asked. Sasuke shook his head as he pulled on a navy vest that had his symbol on the back. No, he's just bored. He never really understood what use any technical words or theories could have in a field. He's a kinesthetic learner through and through. Outside of class and on a mission, there's no one else I'd rather want to lead me. Kurama nodded. He's very good at what he does. Interesting, Haku said as he took in this new information about his partner. His thoughts were put on hold as Naruto came out of the bathroom in part of the school uniform without the jacket on. His white shirt sleeves were rolled up to his bicep, and somehow in the few minutes Naruto was in the bathroom, another patch with Naruto's world-like symbol was sewed almost professionally into the right shoulder. Unlike his friends, he'd kept the navy vest with Beacon's insignia, and Naruto was in the process of adjusting his orange tie. This thing is such a pain, Naruto said with a sigh as he gave up. He looked around at the surprised looks on his friend's face. What? Damn, stupid, you clean up good. If you had dressed up more often back in con, I think you could have had at least 2 girlfriends by now, Kurama mused with a grin. He was comfortable with his sexuality enough to know when a fellow male looked good, but whereas Haku was nearly a girl in beauty, or Sasuke had the right angles that gave off the prince-like appearance, Naruto was the handsome rogue, much like himself. Oi, I had a girlfriend. A few dates with a girl doesn't make her your girlfriend, Naruto, Sasuke drawled. Naruto stuck his tongue out at Sasuke and crossed his arms over his chest. He looked at the door when there was another bang. Geez, who's being so crazy at a stupid hour? Probably PJ, Kurama said nonchalantly as he resumed brushing his tail. Think they're up? Naruto asked as he leaned against his designed dresser. He watched Haku and Sasuke as they began to make their beds and looked at his mess with an indifferent gaze. Hard not to be after that whistle, Kurama grumbled. An hour later, Naruto led his team out of their room, while Haku beside him looking at their schedule and map of Beacon. Kurama followed behind them, his brushed tail swishing lazily inches from the ground, and Sasuke walked alongside him, his face buried in the most recent release of Ninjas of Love. You know, a lot of people give the Toad crap for his dirty books, but I have to say, there's some decent plot here, Sasuke mused. I still can't believe you're reading that in public, Haku muttered distractedly as he looked on the map for their first class. To Sasuke, however, it sounded angry and he grimaced. Kurama saw this and grinned widely. Oh, this could be fun. Oh, I totally agree, he said with a nod. Only the most perverted men can read such garbage in public. Sasuke snapped the book shut and glared at Kurama, who merely gave him a grin in return. Naruto, who walked lazily with his hands intertwined behind his head, paused as, as a faint yell came from somewhere behind him. Did you guys hear that? Hear what? Haku, Kurama, and Sasuke asked. Kurama still flicking, and he tilted his head. I think our clock's off by a few minutes, he said. Haku lowered the map and looked back at him. Why do you say that? Kurama stepped to the side of the walk and gestured for the others to do the same. Well, for one thing, most of the Ori sense is already gathered in large groups. However, there are a few small groups, including us, that are outside of the gathered areas. Two such small groups are rapidly approaching and should pass by in 5, 4, 3, 2. We're late! And John cried out as he and his team, followed by Team Ruby, and Naruto waved at the two teams as they shot past, and then let his hands rest behind his head. We should probably fix our clock, Sasuke noted as he pulled his book out from behind his back. He'd seen what happened to a few boys that dared show some girls they read the series, and with the group comprised of 6 girls, Sasuke didn't want to take any chances. He was already on thin ice with Haku as it is. Meh, what's done is done, Naruto shrugged. Can't fix the past, but you can determine the future. Team Nox looked to the right as Professor Ospin and Glinda Goodwitch stopped at the intersection beside them. Ospin had his coffee mug in hand, while Glinda had her scroll out and was looking something over. Naruto smiled at the headmaster and gave a small wave. Morning, Professor. Mr. Uzumaki. Ospin nodded back and took a sip from his mug. Aren't you worried about being late for class? Naruto chuckled sheepishly and let one of his hands fall to his side while the other rubbed his neck. We weren't 5 minutes ago when we thought our room's clock was working fine, but now that we know otherwise, there wasn't much chance for us to be on time anyway. As my old teacher Kakashi used to say, why hurry when we'll already be declared late? Aspen let a small smile cross his face. Kakashi Hatake, I was not aware he'd taken to teaching. He's a good huntsman, a wise man as well. Wise is not the word I would use to describe him, Glinda drawled as she looked up from her scroll and her gaze landed on Naruto and his team. She shut her scroll with a snap and crossed her arms. Mr. Uzumaki, where are your jackets and ties? We ditched them. They were too stuffy, Naruto said with a shrug. Sasuke clasped his hand over his face while Kurama chuckled at the blunt honesty. Haku merely sighed and folded his campus map up. There was no real reason to have it out anymore since, like Naruto said, they were already late. Mr. Uzumaki, it is listed in Beacon Academy's rules for students to attend classes in uniform. Glinda frowned at the boy. Osman cleared his throat and looked at his friend. Now, Glinda, you as well as I know that adjustments can be made for or accessories can be added to the uniform. In this case, it seems that Team Nox has decided to exchange some materials while keeping with the style. Professor Ospin, Glinda began to say only to stop herself and sigh. Of course, Professor, it is your school. Quite, Ospin agreed with a small smile before he looked at Team Nox. And while your tardiness today can be overlooked, I would advise you not let it become a habit, Mr. Uzumaki. Naruto let a nervous chuckle out and nodded. Right. Sorry, Professor Ospin. Professor, since you're here, could you tell us where our classes is? Haku asked politely. Ospin nodded and pointed down the way Team Ruby and Juniper had run. Team Nox walked off after thanking him, and the headmaster took a sip of his coffee. A nice group of boys, aren't they, Glinda? Mr. Uzumaki and Mr. Otsutsuki are highly rated in combat, but their penchant for mischief and troublemaking when together worries me, Glinda said as she adjusted her glasses. And while Mr. Uchiha and Mr. Yuki are not prone to the same delinquency, I do not have confidence that they'll be able to contain the other two. So you have informed me time and again. When we reviewed their initiation, Ospin wryly replied before he took another sip from his coffee mug and continued his stroll. My grandfather said, Peter, you've... Oh, hello, boys, a rotund man at the front of the classroom said when Team Nox came in through the doors. Team Nox, was it? Yes, sir, Naruto said with a grin while his teammates walked down a few steps and slid into a row, leaving the seat on the end for Naruto. They had been tardy all day, and after their last class, this fact had earned them a talking to from their professor. The team leader scratched the back of his head as he looked at the last professor he'd have to deal with today. Sorry we're late. We sort of got lost on the road of life. Sasuke groaned and let his head fall onto the desk in front of him, while Kurama let out a single laugh. Haku sighed and pulled out his scroll to take some notes for the class. The professor seemed to accept this answer, much to the bewilderment of the other students, since he nodded his head and smiled. Ah, very problematic that road can be. It takes a well-educated mind and a finely tuned body to traverse it with ease. You may have a seat, Mr. Uzumaki. I'm Professor Port, if you didn't already know. Thanks, Professor P. Naruto gave a two-fingered salute and plumped down in his seat. Professor Port nodded back and looked around the classroom. Now, where was I? Ah, yes, my story. You see, back when I was a young lad, Haku nearly jumped when Naruto suddenly slumped over, out cold and letting out soft snores. The feminine boy looked at his two other teammates, who shrugged or smiled in a "what can you do" fashion. Realizing that they weren't kidding when it came to Naruto's lack of desire for education, Haku sighed and made an additional note at the top of his page to ensure Naruto got a copy. Kurama decided to take time to appreciate the notes of the grim on the board and tune the professor out. He did arch a brow when he thought he heard the word cabbages, but ultimately decided to resume his studying of the board's notes on the structure and weak points of a Deathstalker. Sasuke, like Haku, had his scroll out and was taking down notes. Unlike Haku, however, he was making notes of his observation on the teacher himself rather than the material that was being discussed. Narcissistic, egotistical, whimsical, boring, and to top it all off, Sasuke's thought broke off when the professor cleared his throat and gave a pointed look to Team Ruby, who had unfortunately been stuck in the first row. Sasuke arched a brow and smirked as Professor Port stared the four girls down. Well, that sucks for them. In conclusion, a true huntsman must be honorable. Kurama looked out the window as a butterfly passed by before a bird snagged it. He smirked. The wonders of nature. A true huntsman must be dependable. Naruto snorted awake and took in his surroundings. Geez, this guy's still talking? Curse you, reality. You once more keep me from which I love right, as I am about to truly express bliss. True huntsmen must be strategic, well-educated, and wise. Sasuke sighed as he let his scroll rest in front of him and glanced lazily at Professor Port. Shame you're none of those last three things. I can see you're checking out the femme Naruto from here. Wait, did I just call her up? Oh crap baskets. He's rubbing off on me. Now, who among you believe themselves to be the embodiment of these traits? Professor Port asked as he looked around the room. Naruto arched a brow. What traits? Haku offered his scroll and Naruto looked them over. Nope, not me, he decided with a chuckle as he rested his head on his arms. Offer him some lien though, Kurama said with a smirk. Hey, more lien means more ramen, and I'm always up for more ramen. Naruto returned with a cheeky grin. Sasuke shook his head. There's no one here who truly feels that way about themselves. Aside from you, Naruto asked. Sasuke shook his head. Even I'm not that full of myself. I do, sir. Why, Sando, shut up. I stand corrected. Apparently there is someone here who truly feels that way about themselves, Sasuke said in surprise. Well, someone more egotistical than Sasuke. Maybe we were wrong, Naruto said. Maybe Sneeze is the femme Sasuke instead of Belle. Kurama chuckled and leaned back in his seat. Man, I wish I had a camera ready. This is going to be good. Haku sighed and closed the scroll as a rattling cage slowly rose up from the ground. I believe there's no more notes to be taken today. Oh man, there's a Grim. I would have said something if I'd known there was a Grim to fight, Naruto said with a pout as Professor Port gestured to the cage and told Weiss to get ready to face the monster. They waited for a few minutes before Weiss returned with her white-themed outfit on and rapier in hand. Go Weiss, Yang cheered. Blake waved a small flag with her team's name on it. Fight well. Yeah, represent Team Ruby. Ruby cheered. Kurama chuckled. Oh, I want to jeer at Shnee, but that was just adorable. Kurama's got a weak spot for cute girls, Naruto said to his partner, who nodded. I completely understand. Haku smiled lightly. Ruby is a cute girl. It's hard not to have a weak spot for her. Yeah, if she pouted at him, I'm fairly certain he'd bend to her every whim, Naruto said with a grin. I would not, Kurama snapped with a scowl as he glared at the blonde. Sasuke smirked. Well, Naruto, it seems that Kurama has decided to indulge in denial. Oh, so he's on the boat with you, huh? Now both Kurama and Sasuke were glaring at the grinning blonde. All right, let the match begin, Port declared as he used his blunderbuss axe to remove the lock from the unknown Grimm's cage. The cage door fell down to reveal a shadowy warthog-like creature with a white bone mask connected to two large tusks and plates scattered across its small body. Weiss avoided the initial charge that the Grim made and even dealt a counter out as she did. Not bad, Sasuke said thoughtfully. Had Barbatusk not been so heavily armored, I'd say that this would already be over. Indeed, Haku said as he observed the fight. Kurama laughed when Wise's rapier was caught in the Grimm's tusk. She actually charged at it. Come on, even newbies at con know that barber tusks are more armored near the head so that they can handle the impact their attacks make. Naruto groaned as Wise was disarmed. Man, she's really not paying attention to this thing at all, is she? Nope, Haku agreed as he shook his head. This was actually kind of irritating to watch. He sighed when Wise dodged the Borbertusk's charge and the Grim bounced off of the desk without any damage done to the wood. She does remember that she can use her semblance, right? I would assume that since Professor Port can bring a Borbertusk into the classroom, that there would be some sort of safety measure in place for the other students. Or there's not and we're just expected to be able to dodge, Naruto said. He leaned back in his seat and rubbed his head. We are training to become huntsmen and huntresses after all. True, Haku conceded. Wise, go for his belly. There's no armor underneath it. Stop telling me what to do. Wise cut Ruby off. Naruto sighed and shook his head. Not cool. It seems the Team Ruby has more cracks than one would think, Haku said. Sasuke crossed his arms. There was bound to be a clash of all those different personalities. The only reason I get along so well with this Idiot 1 and Idiot 2 is because we've known each other since childhood, and you fit in with us because, well, you're nice and polite. Something to balance out our leader's brash and rude attitude. Screw you, Uchiha. Naruto flipped the dark-haired boy off without removing his eyes from the fight. He pursed his lips as the Borbertusk curled into a ball and spun rapidly before it charged at Wise. I'd punch it, grab a tusk, and bury the head into the ground, then use a bullet to finish it off. Restrain and reveal the underbelly, then do the same, Haku nodded. Kurama dug in his ear with his pinky. I'd probably find a way to knock it on its back and pierce it with Rikudo. I would electrocute it, Sasuke shrugged when the three other members of his team looked at him. What? When it works, it works. True, the other three conceded and watched as Weiss made a few figures in the air to reflex the Borbertusk and then jumped off to impale the Grim with her rapier. Bravo, Professor Port said as a few members of the class applauded. It seems that we're in the presence of a true huntress. Kurama snorted and flicked the discovery in his ear off to the side. Yeah, she's a true huntress and I'm going to ask her to marry me. Careful, Kurama. That's how those sorts of rumors get started, Sasuke warned his partner with a smirk. He stood up as Professor Port dismissed the class. Oh, like you can start a rumor, Sasuke, Kurama scoffed. He buffed his nails on his chest and smirked. You're but a novice in the arts of gossip, whereas I am a master. I did manage to get that rumor started after all. Sasuke and Naruto shuddered while Haku frowned in confusion. What rumor? He asked. Nothing. Sasuke and Naruto cut in quickly before Kurama could answer him. They glared at the grinning faunus as he slipped by them and walked out of the classroom. If you say so, Haku frowned in confusion while both Naruto and Sasuke sighed in relief. They certainly dodged that bullet. Hey, Whisker Boy, where have you been all day? Yang said to her fellow blonde as Team Nox walked up to herself and Blake while they sat with the boys of Team Juniper. The girls were in the midst of a spar while Pyrrha offering advice to the energetic Nora after each attack she missed, getting in trouble for having a broken clock and being late to every class today. How's it Yangin? Naruto asked with a grin while Yang laughed and Blake sighed. No more plans. Peace. And Blake asked. Naruto grinned at her as he took the spot next to Yang. No promises, Belle. Sasuke shook his head and sat down next to Ren, while Kurama claimed the seat next to him. Good luck with that. We've been trying to get him to stop being stupid for years. The most we can manage. Well, Kurama nodded and reached his jacket to withdraw a rubber chicken. He then tossed the chicken on the ground in front of Naruto. Naruto, don't do anything stupid. Naruto stared at the chicken and looked like he was about to start hyperventilating before he whipped out a paddle ball from somewhere. Must resist stupidity impulse. Is that healthy? Blake asked as she arched a brow while Yang snickered. It gets better. Kurama smirked as he threw down a marker and a can of green beans. Naruto did start to hyperventilate and sweat poured down the side of his face. The paddle ball became a blur as Naruto's eyes flickered between the objects he desired to use so badly and the current source of entertainment he had on hand. Must resist stupidity impulse. Must resist. Not resistant well. That's not normal, Haku pointed out with a look of concern on his face. Kurama chuckled. No, but it is funny. With so many people present, it's harder, but if he was by himself, he'd last longer. So he gets off on having an audience? Yang asked with a lewd grin as she stared at the sweating and trembling whiskered blonde. What's wrong, Naruto? performance problems? Woman, do not tease me right now. Naruto grinned out as bullets of sweat shot from his head, while the paddle ball looked like it was about to burst into flame. Never mind. There it goes. Yang grinned and, despite the frantic waving coming from Kurama and Sasuke, leaned in to whisper in his ear, I can help you with those problems. The pedal ball snapped off the string and shot into the sky. Naruto tossed the bellless pedal ball away and grabbed his head with an anguishing cry. I can't take it anymore. He vanished in a burst of speed and left a large cloud of smoke in his image. Yang waved her hand through it, and the smoke scattered into the air. The items at his feet were gone, as if they were never there. Oh, what have we done? Kurama mumbled. His skin seemed to pale, and his glasses slid down slightly to nearly reveal the top of his eyes. We armed him. Sasuke looked worried. You don't think you'd actually prank her first, do you? Prank who? John asked nervously. Sasuke's fetish appeal. Screw you, Otsutsuki. Sasuke grunted with a punch to the faunus' arm. Kurama snickered while John looked worried. No, but seriously, who did he want to prank? He asked again. Who want to prank? The group looked back to find Naruto back in his seat next to Yang, looking like he hadn't just run off like a madman frothing at the mouth. He even had a new pedal ball in his hand and seemed to actually play with it while he tilted his head to my Pyrrhus derriere when she bent over to help Nora back on her feet. Naruto, where did you go? Haku asked his teammate. He got no response. Naruto. Sorry, I was admiring the scenery. Naruto grinned at his teammate. Sapaku, where did you just go now? Haku asked again. Me? I didn't go anywhere. I was just sitting here admiring the scenery and playing with my paddle ball. He looked over at Yang and adjusting the way he held the childish toy so that it made a lewd hand gesture. You know, to prepare myself for those long, lonely nights. Yang snickered despite herself. Blake shoved her slightly, and Yang gave her a sheepish grin. What? It's funny. It's disgusting, Blake drawled. This coming from the girl with a copy of Ninjas of Love, Naruto said dryly. He ignored the blush that flared up on Blake's face and looked at Sasuke. Seems Kurama and I were right, Sasuke. She is a female version of you. Yang looked at her partner with a grin. So, Ninja of Love, huh? Shut up, Blake hissed. She glared at Naruto. How do you know that? Naruto glanced over at her with an arched brow. Know what? That I have a copy of Ninjas of Love? You do? Well, that's kinky. Hey Sasuke, I have good news for you. You got a book buddy? You can start a book study, book club. A kinky book club. Yang burst into laughter along with Kurama while Sasuke and Blake blushed bright red. Ren and Haku rubbed their faces with their hands while John looked confused. What's Ninjas of Love? He asked. Naruto looked at his fellow blonde with shock and his pedal ball stopped. Tell me you're joking. John shook his head. Dear, you poor boy. Naruto gave his new friend a smile. Alright, where to begin? Well, it all starts with our hero named Nimato from the village of Pusai. Nimato is on an endless journey to find his one true love. John smiled. Oh, that sounds nice. I should get a few copies for my sisters. No, Sasuke and Blake cried out quickly, while Yang fell backwards into the bleachers as she laughed. Yes, I guess I should be honest. If you have sisters, don't want any visits home to end in a broken puke boy now, do we? Naruto asked. He leaned forwards and looked at John. You see, Nimato is the master of the Fa Pin Fist style and has yet to be defeated on the battlefield against any male or female opponent. Yang, who had never read the stories, stopped laughing and sat up. I'm sorry, what? Naruto looked at her with an arched brow. What? Nimato experiments from time to time. Yang's eyes widened and she let a small grin across her face. Go on. What are you all talking about? Pyrrha asked as she walked over to join the group, with Nora not far behind her. Naruto looked up at her, taking a brief moment to admire her figure from this angle before he grinned. Oh, Sasuke and Blake just suggesting a book for John to read. You son of a... Kurama, who looked far too giddy as he listened to this whole conversation, covered Sasuke's mouth before he could finish that sentence. Ow! Blake likewise was stopped and her mouth was covered by Yang, who looked at Naruto expectantly. Don't leave me hanging, Naruto. How many guys did Nimato take on? She asked. Yang, there's only one thing I let hang purposely, and that's because of genetics, Naruto quipped with a grin. Yang grinned back at him. Oh, is that a fact? What's the book you were discussing? Pyrrha asked, curious and trying to not think about what the two blondes had meant, while Nora pestered Ren about his pink cheeks that matched his hair. Oh, something about duality. I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention. Naruto admitted as he went back to playing with his paddleball. He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out his scroll, which he used to check the time. Any second now. Kurama stopped smiling and released his partner's mouse. What did you do? I seriously didn't set up an elaborate prank that would take too long to explain with the materials you left so tantalizingly close to me, Naruto said with an innocent blink of his eyes. We are so expelled, Sasuke groaned. That's only if I'm caught. Naruto grinned as his team all paled. And as far as all of you know, I was here the whole time. Which I was. Yang snickered and let her arm wrap around Naruto's shoulders. Whisker boy, I'm starting to think that you and I are going to get along way better than I originally thought. Yang and Blake shivered. Being the two blonde's partners, that meant they were particularly responsible for their actions and were required to keep an eye on them. John opened his mouth to say something when a loud scream came from the other side of the beacon. All eyes went to Naruto, who once more resumed playing with his paddleball. Nora, whatever you do, do not ever make Naruto angry, Ren firmly told his partner and longtime friend. Nora tilted her head. I don't know why I would, Ren. I don't want to make anyone angry. I want us all to have pancakes. I prefer waffles. Nora glared at Sasuke, who merely stared back with a brow arched, silently challenging her to do something about it. Nora. But Ren. Ren stared at her. Nora pouted and glared at Sasuke. I will break you. Better people have tried. Naruto and Kurama took that as their cue to start whistling innocently. Sasuke sighed at Haku's side and looked up at the orange-red sky. It's getting late, and we still have classes tomorrow. I suggest we turn in for the night. Good call, partner. Naruto grinned and hopped to his feet, still playing with his paddleball. Haku, Kurama, and Sasuke weren't far behind him as he started to walk away. See you guys tomorrow. Tell Ruby and Sneeze we hope they have a nice dreams. Okay, how can you two be so comfortable with this? Sasuke asked under his breath as Naruto and Kurama started to change into some night clothes while Haku ducked into the bathroom for a shower. Naruto looked at his raven-haired friend as he pulled up a pair of running shorts and tossed his clothes in a bin at the other side of the room. Comfortable with what? She's showering and you two are or just getting all casually undressed, Sasuke replied with a frown. Naruto blinked. She? Haku, you idiot! Naruto looked at Kurama, who gave him a smirk. Naruto seemed to see the idea as he grinned back and looked at Sasuke. She hasn't complained so far. Besides, Aspen probably wouldn't have assigned her to stay with us if she wasn't all right with it, Kurama said with a smirk. I spoke with her earlier while you were in the lunch line. She went to a co-ed school and shared the showers with guys, so sharing a room with guys wasn't that big of a deal for her. Naruto turned away and bit onto his knuckles to conceal his laughter, while Sasuke snapped his head over to Kurama so fast that the fondness was slightly worried his partner had broken something. Really? Kurama smirked. Hook, line, and sinker. Damn, I'm good. Really? Sasuke's surprise stare turned into a soft smirk that actually made girls back home fawn over his appearance, or as Naruto would put it, cream their panties. He grabbed his towel off the rack outside the bathroom and stripped himself down to his birthday suit. The two other males weren't all that impressed. They had seen their friend naked before in the locker room. If you'll excuse me, I think I'm going to see if I can make this team really worthwhile, Sasuke said as he slipped into the bathroom. Kurama waited until the door shut with a soft click before he hopped up from his bed and began to dig around his dresser. Camera, where's my camera? This is going to be amazing. Naruto, once he'd managed to calm down, looked over at the excited faunus and scratched his head. I don't know, Kurama. Maybe this was a little bit much. I mean, Haku probably won't enjoy Sasuke's attempt to seduce him. I'll make it up to him later, Kurama said as he brushed Naruto's worried aside. Both teens looked at the bathroom door as a loud shriek came from the bathroom and was followed by a thud. They heard the shower cut off and a concerned soft voice mutter something they couldn't make out. The two waited silently until Haku burst out of the bathroom with a towel around his waist and a worried look on his face. Guys, Sasuke's fallen and hit his head on the toilet. What do we do? Get out of my way. Get out of my way. I need to get pictures of this. Kurama rushed past the bewildered Haku while Naruto fell out of his bed and whirled with laughter. Poor Haku could only wonder why they had reacted in such a manner. While flashes and clicks of a camera came from the bathroom. In the end, Haku sighed and went to his dresser to dress for the night. His teammates were weird, but he wouldn't trade them for the world. End of chapter 4.